Welcome back to another video on the Raider Take Podcast YouTube channel. Today we are going to basically predict and touch on some potential stat lines for the Raiders stars in 2023. Raiders did a lot during the offseason. More so was to benefit the offense and the defense. It did seem very obvious, though, they decided to retool the offense, free agency, and address the defensive needs in the draft. With plenty of new faces on either side of the ball, it's only fitting that we try and project what a final stat line would look like this season. The most interesting part will be seeing how the returning guys get affected by the newbies, whether that's positive or negative. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Undeniably, the quarterback position became the hottest talking point for the Las Vegas Raiders this offseason. After releasing 9-year veteran Derek Carr, Josh McDaniels went out and brought in a familiar face in former Patriot Jimmy Garoppolo. What's semi-comical about the whole situation, in regards to Raiders Twitter and arguing about Carr and everything that you could potentially ever argue about, is that Jimmy G was probably the most lateral move from Carr that the Raiders could have made. Last season, Carr had what was considered a down year for him in his first year with Josh McDaniels. He posted a stat line of 3,522 passing yards, 24 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, with a 60.8% completion percentage. Ironically enough, Garoppolo's best season he's had was only slightly better than that. This will be the first season, though, that we see Jimmy Garoppolo as a starter from Jump Street in McDaniel's system that allows more downfield passing than the Kyle Shanahan system that he just came out of. There's a lot of stuff going on right now about Jimmy G and this whole injury situation and the clauses in his contract, all that stuff. Tom Brady, is he going to come be an owner and a quarterback? It's all insane, all ridiculous. That being said, Garoppolo is fully expected to be back, and my prediction for his 2023 stat line, 4,200 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Next up, running back position. Last year was the year of the running back for the Raiders. Josh Jacobs came out after getting his fifth-year option denied and ran his way to the top of the running back list for the NFL in 2022. He racked up 1,653 rushing yards, 12 touchdowns, averaging a dominating 4.9 yards per carry. He also improved his receiving game by pulling in 400 yards on 53 receptions. In the 2022 NFL Draft, the Raiders drafted Georgia standout Zamir White. Many thought he was being brought in to be Jacobs' replacement, which still could be the case. It is undeniable that Jacobs is the guy right now, though, and will be as long as he's in silver and black. White seems to be a product of bad timing and lack of reps in regards to last year. Jacobs was just so good and consistent that White only really saw the field to spell him from time to time and give him some rest. I do believe Zamir will come into his own this season, having a full year of learning to be a professional and getting more opportunities to run the ball. 2023 stat lines: Josh Jacobs, 1,300 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns. Zamir White, 500 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. Next up, wide receivers and tight ends. This is the positional group that got the biggest overhaul of them all. Going into the offseason, Davante Adams, Hunter Renfrow were the only Raiders receivers who caught a pass in 2022 that were still on the roster. The Raiders front office went out and fixed that in a hurry. They started out by adding a legit wide receiver 2 option in Jacoby Myers. They proceeded to bring in Philip Dorsett and DeAndre Carter in free agency as well. When the draft came around, they got the biggest steal of the whole weekend in tight end Michael Mayer in round 2, and do-it-all receiver Trey Tucker right after him in round 3. How Mayer pans out will be the most intriguing of it all. He steps into a spot that was once owned by Darren Waller, whom the Raiders traded to the New York Giants in return for the pick that Turner was selected with. How he steps into Waller's big shoes, production-wise, will be something to watch for the 2023 season and beyond. So, 2023 stat lines. Davante Adams, 105 receptions, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. Jacoby Myers, 65 receptions, 800 yards, 5 touchdowns. Hunter Renfrow, 60 receptions, 650 yards, 2 touchdowns. Finally, Michael Mayer, 65 receptions, 350 yards, 4 touchdowns. Last but not least, Raiders defense and special teams. The defense is always the talk of the town for the Raiders, not in a good way. The Raiders are always a good defense away from competing, yet every year the defense seems to still be terrible. This year, unlike most though, the team invested a lot of their draft picks on defensive talent. The most exciting part on the defensive side of things is rookie defensive end Tyree Wilson. Taken at number 7 overall in the NFL draft, Wilson was also considered somewhat of a steal, as many thought he could have been the first defensive player taken off the board. Combination of him and Max Crosby is going to be a must watch this year. Flip to the third phase of football on special teams side, and you have one of the most automatic and reliable kickers in the league. Daniel Carlson has been as close to a sure thing as the Raiders have had in a long time. It really takes you back to that Janikowski years, right? Especially Carlson, AJ Cole combination. You got this Jano, Shane Leckler combo that it just gives you all the feels. Over the last 3 years, Carlson has averaged 93% field goal percentage and hasn't missed more than 3 field goals in an entire season in the same span. 2023 stat lines for the defense and the special teams. Max Crosby, 80 total tackles, 13 sacks. Tyree Wilson, 50 total tackles, 8.5 sacks. Daniel Carlson, 31 of 34 for field goals, 91.2% field goal percentage. So there it is. That's my predictions. Hope you guys liked it. Please share, subscribe, rate, review, right? Subscribe to the channel, share it, like it, put those notifications on. Appreciate the love, and we will see you soon.